Strong values and strong opinions. The Mike Broomhead Show. KTAR News, 92.3 FM, and the KTAR News app.
All right, I had a great conversation this morning. The Senate President, Warren Petersen, our Arizona State Senate President, came on to talk about the reason why they are filing a lawsuit against the Biden administration over the creation of a national monument in northern Arizona near the Grand Canyon. The Biden administration said this is about the Antiquities Act and about preserving land, and there's nothing up there. But it's not just going to affect mining. That's one of the things we talked about, and this is a bigger economic conversation. But farmers and ranchers. So before we get into the details of the economy, I'm going to go back on my rant about the real environmentalists in this world. The real environmentalists here in the state of Arizona are the farmers, the ranchers, the hunters, and the anglers. If you hunt or fish, if you work the land by growing crops or raising cattle, you are an environmentalist because you are invested. Even if you are the most selfish business person on the planet, that it's all about your bank account, you realize that land is your bank account. And instead of listening to those people, the federal government comes in and they regulate them with regulations many times that make no sense. There is absolutely no, if you go look on a map where this is, and you can find it online of this area, it's not close to the Grand Canyon, as they say near the Grand Canyon. It's not close to the Grand Canyon, as they say it is. And that's one thing you'll notice is that it's further away from the canyon than you thought it was. And there's nothing there. Farmers and ranchers utilize it, but now they can't. This is in an effort to get rid of uranium mining because there is a huge amount of uranium there. And the activists and the environmentalist activists in our country believe that mining for uranium is unsafe. Doesn't matter what the reports say. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is we don't want it here, so by any means necessary, we're going to tell you in Arizona you can't have it there. Now, how does this pertain to the economy? Well, the WTI breaks out with new November highs after OPEC data shows huge supply shortfall. Oil prices have been coiling for a few days ahead of this data and are breaking out now after OPEC reports the global oil markets face a shortfall of more than 3 million barrels per day next quarter. So this is where we're seeing high oil prices. How does this have anything to do with mining in Arizona? I believe Arizona is number one in the country for non-energy mining, non-fuel mining. It's a huge part of our economy. We are known as the copper state, and we supply a big supply of the nation's copper. As we move forward, as this administration, as I would say, schizophrenic as their policies are, on one hand, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but on one hand, they are pushing us, shoving us to what they call renewable energy, solar, wind, electric. First of all, we don't have the electric grid that can take it. A lot of our electric in this country and in Arizona is produced by fossil fuels. It takes fossil fuels to produce the electricity. We don't have enough charging stations, but they're pushing us in that direction. And in order for us to become anywhere near, which I don't ever think we're going to hit the goals that this administration in the time frame it talked about, in order to push in that direction, we have got to mine minerals to build solar panels and to build these electric vehicles. There is far more copper in an electric vehicle than there is in a gas or diesel powered vehicle. A lot more. They weigh a lot more. It's all the challenges, but we're talking energy here. We're talking about the mining industry. The minerals, including lithium, that are needed, the minerals, including copper and the other minerals that are necessary. As far as it pertains to northern Arizona, it's uranium. We have the Palo Verde nuclear power plant here in Arizona, and so we need uranium. We buy it from Russia. So this is the part of it that's confusing to me. We know the Russians despise us. We know the Russians are fighting the Ukrainians, and they're using the money they make in the energy sector, these inflated oil prices because they're in with the OPEC plus nations and cutting production that raises the amount of money per barrel. They're in on that. They're producing uranium that we're buying, and then they're using those billions of dollars in purchases of uranium to buy the military equipment to fight the Ukrainians that we're funding with billions of our dollars. None of this makes sense to me. When you talk about the safety of mining, it is so much safer now than it's ever been before. Environmentalism leads the way. And I'm telling you, I get nothing from the mining industry, nothing. I'm doing my homework. I'm going to go up. I want to take a trip to the mine. I want to see what they do. I want to learn more about how they do it. And I'm going to do that because it's such an integral part of what we do in Arizona, and it plays a huge role, not just in our immediate economy, but the future economy. If the OPEC plus nations are continuing with this 1 million barrel per day reduction in barrels of oil, and we're at a 3 million barrel per day deficit, what is that going to do to oil prices going into the winter? Going into this winter? Fuel oil, what's it going to do to the prices? We talk about families having to choose between eating and keeping warm. This is a big part of it. And this plays a big role in our economy. So what happens when we don't fight for these things in these industries? What the Senate president is doing here, I think, is necessary. I want you to hear him talk about the Arizona economy.
Only 17% of Arizona is privately owned or can be used for commerce. These are areas that were federally owned, but we were able to use them for commerce. We have limited land use for commerce. This needs to be used.
So that's the issue, is it's our land. We are fiercely independent in Arizona, and I'm talking about even I'm not talking Republican and Democrat. I mean, people in Arizona are largely self-sufficient. People in Arizona take pride in being self-sufficient. Stay out of my business, stay out of my way. And this flies right in the face of that. If Arizona, and I want you to think about it, and maybe you disagree with me, I want you to think about the people you know that have been in Arizona for a very, very long time. I've been here 28 and a half years. I think that's a fairly long time, but I'm not a native. I'm privileged to know people that are multi-generation natives. Family business follows family business follows family business. And you see those are the people that are most invested. Ranchers and farmers in Arizona, these are family businesses largely. And there are people that are concerned about water, and they're concerned about air, and they're concerned about climate because it directly impacts, even if they're the most selfish business person in the world, it directly impacts their business. And instead of following their lead, the government says, well, you may decide you want to mine, and we don't want to mine. So we're declaring a national monument, so you can't have a mine even if you want one. Even if you disagree with the mine, how can you disagree? How can you agree with the tactics? Just my 2 cents.